Everyone. The Utah Jazz traded Rudy Gobert and are now ready to go into a full-fledged rebuild. They likely plan on trading Donovan Mitchell. They are just waiting for the biggest trade package. Now, the Knicks are the most likely destination, it seems like, to land Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell would like to go to the Knicks, and the Knicks want Donovan Mitchell. Now, obviously, the Knicks don't want to put too much into Donovan Mitchell, but the goal is to do what is necessary to get him. Utah, they being a rebuilding team, they want picks, they want young assets, they want things that could really help benefit them and kind of be a way to have diversity to jumpstart that rebuild, right? You get a bunch of picks, you only need to hit on like 2 or 3 of them, and then you could package the rest and go get that fourth guy or that big game-changing guy, something along those lines. So what type of trade package could another team put together that could be beneficial for Utah for not just a rebuild, but even to help now? What if Utah traded Donovan Mitchell to the Sacramento Kings? Bill Simmons on the Bill Simmons podcast suggested this very trade where Donovan Mitchell would go to the Sacramento Kings. They would get De'Aaron Fox, maybe get another asset or two, maybe like a first-round pick, something along those lines. Because Donovan Mitchell is a better player than De'Aaron Fox. Now, Sacramento Kings fans might feel otherwise, but in reality, he is. And he would be a guy that is more proven than De'Aaron Fox. Sacramento hasn't been to a playoffs in the last 15 years, and Donovan Mitchell is a proven commodity. He's a guy that has shown he can go toe-to-toe with some of the best in the league, that he's a guy that can lead his team to at least the playoffs and be a competitive guy. And the Sacramento Kings, we cannot sleep on their roster. I mean, they have quite the team put together. I mean, you got Herter, you got Harrison Barnes, you end up getting Sabonis, right? You have so many assets that really could benefit just putting a guy like Donovan Mitchell who could do so many things. He could play make, he could score, he can be that go-to guy. And he doesn't really have to make an adjustment as if he went to another team, right? If he goes to the Knicks, he has to make that adjustment with Jalen Brunson because Jalen Brunson is essentially the same player. Now, Jalen Brunson has been the number 2 guy pretty much his whole career, and so maybe they can work that out where Donovan Mitchell still has the ball in his hands primarily. He's the guy that kind of is initiating the offense, facilitating, making the plays and stuff. But if he goes to a team like the Kings, he would be that guy. He would be the guy that, can bring the ball up, could be the guy to kind of get it done. If not, you have other guys on the Kings that could do that, and then he could slot in the 2 spot. It would be great for the Sacramento Kings, and likely you become a playoff team with Donovan Mitchell. With De'Aaron Fox, there's still questions about can he get you to the playoffs. So far, he hasn't been able to do that, and he's inconsistent at times. At least Donovan Mitchell, you're consistently getting the same production night in and night out. Neither are great defenders, so you're not losing anything in the defensive department, and this could make the Sacramento Kings just a more fun team to watch and more entertaining. I mean, seriously, you have all those pieces and you add Donovan Mitchell to it, the Kings become must-watch basketball. Even if they're not great, they still would be a young team that could be up and coming, that could easily squeeze into a playoff spot in this Western Conference, especially with teams like Utah falling apart. The Spurs are completely tanking. So you could get into a play-in or even a playoff spot rather easily. And Donovan Mitchell could be that guy that could get you there. And, I mean, you could make an argument that the Kings now with Donovan Mitchell is probably better than any Utah team that Donovan Mitchell has had in reality. I mean, the Sacramento Kings shouldn't be slept on as far as talent that they have. It's just, can they put it all together? And is De'Aaron Fox the guy that could lead your team and lead the charge, right? If he can, then great. But why not get the upgrade in Donovan Mitchell? Now, I'm not saying that it's night and day. I'm not talking saying De'Aaron Fox is a bum or he's just, a role player or something like that. No, not at all. I mean, he is still a solid guard in this league. He's still a guy that can put up, 20 points a game, things like that. But I just think Donovan Mitchell adds an element to the Kings that they haven't had in a very long time, and adds that element to the Kings that De'Aaron Fox just doesn't give you. Also, they both play very different styles of basketball, and I just think Donovan Mitchell's style would suit the Kings better. So I do think this would be a huge benefit for the Sacramento Kings. You don't really have to give up much, right? You're probably just giving up one first or maybe like a pick swap or, and then De'Aaron Fox. Like, that's the deal. Like, you're giving us Donovan Mitchell. We're giving you another, sort of mid-tier guy, another potential all-star guy who's still young, who has still room to grow, all of that stuff. We're not going to give you 3 first-round picks for that. You're getting a guy that could help jumpstart your rebuild immediately. You got a guy that you can build around immediately. You don't have to hit on the draft picks. You got your guy to start, right? And maybe that would entice Utah, and then Utah would be willing to take that. But Utah would also have several options, right? Primarily, they get De'Aaron Fox, right? De'Aaron Fox is that guy that can be now your starting point guard. He could be the guy that you kind of build around. You're likely moving off of Conley regardless if you get rid of Mitchell. So you probably move off Conley. You got De'Aaron Fox. Let's say you get 1 first round, right? For just a slight upgrade. A protected first, something crazy. Top 5 protected, something like that. Maybe even top 10 protected. And it's like, okay, we'll get this. You get De'Aaron Fox. And then the Jazz now have Fox to do a full-fledged rebuild. You got the guy to build around. He's in a place where he could be effective and he's going to shine and he's going to be the star. And, he's the face of the franchise, the Utah Jazz. And they have just this treasure trove of draft picks and things that if they want, they could use and package to go get some mid-tier guys or maybe a disgruntled star this season that wants to leave somewhere. And Utah could say, hey, we got De'Aaron Fox. We could go get you. You and De'Aaron Fox, we'd have tons of cap space. We would have, other assets beyond what we give up for you to go get you another guy. Like, why don't you come to Utah? And now Utah could be in the conversations of like, hey, this is a serious thing. Like, wait a minute, like what if Bradley Beal just gets tired of the Wizards and is like, hey, I want out. And, and now they're doing a rebuild. And you're Utah, you're like, hey, Bradley, we got De'Aaron Fox, you and De'Aaron Fox in the backcourt. We could go give up the assets to go get you, and then we'd still have assets, and we'd have money to go sign somebody else. Like, you could have a worse spot, right? You could have worse positions, or they, have money to go offer somebody, like make a trade for like a Jordan Poole or, maybe go get like a mid-tier guy like an Andrew Wiggins, because the Golden State Warriors, they got all kinds of players that they got to make decisions on, and they're not going to be able to keep all of them. And various other teams are in the same boat, or maybe you go and you sign a Miles Turner in the offseason, right? If Indiana doesn't re-sign him, go get Miles Turner. Now you got Miles Turner, you got Aaron Fox. Like, you're in a great position if you're the Utah Jazz to really expedite this rebuild. The other possibility is the Utah Jazz, right? They're tanking. They want to rebuild. They want to start fresh. They got all these draft picks. You probably get another first in the deal for De'Aaron Fox. And you have a team like the Knicks that wanted Donovan Mitchell. Well, couldn't you just hit up the Knicks and say, hey, you're not going to get Donovan Mitchell, but we have a consolation prize for you that might actually be a better fit than Jalen Brunson. What if we traded you De'Aaron Fox? So we're going to swap Donovan Mitchell for De'Aaron Fox, and then we can just trade him to you in a 3-team deal. And now the Utah Jazz just double dipped, right? I mean, if you want to talk about a rebuild, you just got a treasure trove for Gobert, right? And now you're getting likely another treasure trove for a Donovan Mitchell trade, right? Because supposedly the Knicks didn't want to give up Barrett and all these picks and stuff like that. Well, if you already got a head start and a pick, right, from the Kings, then you don't need as many picks and stuff for a Donovan Mitchell. And the Knicks, they might be willing to give, if they didn't want to give up 6 for Donovan, maybe they'll give up 4 for De'Aaron Fox, and throw in another guy or two, something like that. Maybe you could get like a Grimes or something like that. And now you got that young guy, you got 5 more draft picks to add to the other draft picks you have. And then the Knicks get their point guard in De'Aaron Fox, right? So now you got De'Aaron Fox and you got Brunson, which in my opinion would be a much better fit than having Donovan Mitchell and Brunson. Like, Mitchell going to the Knicks makes absolutely no sense to me because you have Brunson. And the whole point of Brunson was to be the kind of replacement to Donovan Mitchell. You didn't think you could get Donovan Mitchell, so okay, let's sign Brunson. They're both 6'1" guards. Neither really play defense. They both play very similar in play styles. Their numbers are, per 36 minutes are pretty spot on. Like, I just don't know how well that's going to work. But if you go get a guy in De'Aaron Fox, He is very different and plays a different style of basketball than Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson. So you add that other element to your team if you're the Knicks that you wouldn't have otherwise. And you have, this divisive positions. De'Aaron Fox is the point guard. Jalen Brunson is the shooting guard. And you have that 1-2 punch that can both go get you, 20 a game, stuff like that. Not just that, but De'Aaron Fox doesn't have to do everything like he does on the Kings right now. Now, we'll see how it turns out with him and Sabonis, assuming, no trade ever happens. Now, I don't think the Kings are going to do this anytime soon. If this were ever even a thing, I just think that they want to see, what can Fox and Sabonis do, especially now that they got guys like Herter, you got Malik Monk, you got, Harrison Barnes still. I think that the Kings, like I said, you can't sleep on the Kings roster. The Kings roster is actually pretty nice. They got some nice talent over there that could really make some noise. I don't think they're a contender or anything, but they're definitely a team that I could see sneaking into the playoffs and being just that competitive team. But if you're the Kings, I imagine that they want to wait and see, what do they have before they make any drastic moves like this. But, if you could get the upgrade in Donovan Mitchell, I don't think it's a bad deal. And if you're the Utah Jazz, yeah, you could keep Fox and, sort of expedite your rebuild. But if Fox isn't a guy that you're really fully sold on, well, then maybe you could take him and go reroute him to the Knicks, and the Knicks might bite on that. And now you get some other assets on top. Maybe you end up squeezing out more than you would have if you just traded Donovan Mitchell straight to the Knicks, right? So I think that this could be hugely beneficial for all sides because, think about it. The Knicks get their guy and De'Aaron Fox. They get their point guard and they have Jalen Brunson. On top of that, you have the Utah Jazz who just accumulated a just ridiculous amount of picks from various teams. You got a Knicks picks, you got the Kings picks, you got all the Timberwolves picks, all of that stuff. So you got a ton of assets for your future. And then if you're the Sacramento Kings, you get a proven guy in Donovan Mitchell who is an upgrade over De'Aaron Fox and likely can help you get into the playoffs. I still don't think they're a contender, but I do think Sacramento currently as it stands, no pun intended, is better than with Donovan Mitchell than they are with De'Aaron Fox. I just think that Donovan Mitchell brings more to the table for that team and gives that team more of what they need than De'Aaron Fox does at this time. De'Aaron Fox hasn't been able to prove that he can lead his team anywhere close to the playoffs. He's been in the bottom of the seedings for some time. And yes, a lot of that has to do with Sacramento, but still, it's not like Utah had this just world-beating team. Utah was, Rudy, but there was liabilities with Rudy, all kinds of stuff with Rudy, And yes, De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis, maybe they could be that 1-2 punch that gets you there, but there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of concerns with that. But we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. Anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. What do you think of this trade? Do you love it? Do you hate it? However you feel about it, let me know what you think. Do you think, this is fair for all sides? Utah, it gives Utah more options. They could either keep Fox and grow for their future, and now they have their piece to kind of use to build around, or they could ship them to a team like the Knicks or another team. Maybe there's another team out there that would take De'Aaron Fox. If De'Aaron Fox became available on the market, it's very likely teams would make a push for him too. He is very talented. He is a solid guy. I just don't think you're going to get anywhere close to De'Aaron Fox, what you would get for like a Donovan Mitchell. But you never know. There's teams that do some silly things in the world. But I think that this would be a fair trade for all of them. I actually kind of like this trade a little bit. Especially if the Knicks leg comes in, because I think the Knicks would be better with De'Aaron Fox and Brunson than they would be with Donovan Mitchell and Brunson, just because I just think that that's going to be a problem. I think that backcourt, you have no defense, and they're both essentially the exact same player. At least De'Aaron Fox offers you a different layer to your team than Donovan Mitchell. You got that slashing guard, that athletic guard, the one that can get to the hoop, stuff like that. I think that De'Aaron Fox would be better suited for the Knicks currently than going and getting Donovan Mitchell. And so I think the Knicks would bite on that. I think if you're Utah, you're rebuilding anyway. So you got all these. Maybe you can move Mike Conley for a couple seconds or something like that. Maybe a team would pick him up, and now you're off to the races. I think that it would be beneficial for everybody. But again, that's my opinion. Love to hear yours down in the comment section below. One last little shameless plug is I did start As It Stands Lakers. It is a channel just like this, dedicated to only the Lakers, because the Lakers are my favorite team. And on this channel, As It Stands, I talk about all teams, all sports, stuff like that. We have football season coming up, so I'm definitely looking forward to that as well. And I just wanted to make a dedicated channel to the Lakers to give the ins and outs. Now, all the big stuff, all the big news and stuff, I will still post here on this channel. But if you want all the ins and outs and just rumors and theories and just discussions just strictly on the Lakers, link down in the description or in the comment section. Go check out the channel, subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. That being said, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot, lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports. Join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.